Have you ever noticed what comes after you finally let go of stress? Not the relief, that part's easy. It's what follows. That strange quiet. That hollow pause where everything slows down, yet your mind doesn't know what to do next. You've released the weight, but now you're standing in the emptiness it left behind. That moment can feel unsettling, almost unreal. You expect calm to feel peaceful, but instead it feels foreign, like walking into a room where the noise has suddenly stopped. For so long, the tension, the deadlines, the racing thoughts were what kept you moving. They filled your days, even if they exhausted you. And when all that finally fades, you realize how much of your identity was tied to being under pressure. It's a strange kind of silence, not peaceful yet, but not painful either. Just open, empty. It's the space where the body relaxes faster than the mind can follow. You catch yourself reaching for the next worry, the next thing to fix, because quiet feels too exposed. It's like standing in a clearing after a storm. The air is still, the ground soaked, the world paused between chaos and renewal. Most people don't realize that this pause is natural. It's the system adjusting. It's what happens when you've spent years holding on tight, and suddenly your grip loosens. That emptiness isn't a void to escape from. It's the space where healing starts to breathe. It's awkward only because it's unfamiliar, because for once, there's nothing demanding your energy, nothing to fight, nothing to fix. And maybe that's where the real question begins. What does your quiet feel like? Is it peaceful, or does it still make you restless? Share what that silence feels like for you, because sometimes the way we describe our stillness says more than the noise ever could. Part 1. The space after letting go of stress. When letting go of stress, the most curious part isn't the moment of release itself, but the stillness that follows. It's like the air after a storm has passed the sky, still holding patches of grey, the leaves still wet, but the wind has finally gone quiet. Your room hasn't changed, your work hasn't vanished, and the old questions still wait. The change is in you. Your hands are no longer clenched, your heartbeat slows by half a rhythm, and the noise inside your head begins to thin. That stillness, so many people fear it, but in truth, it's the first doorway that opens into inner peace. We live like rowers fighting upstream, muscles straining against the current, convinced that if we stop paddling, we'll drift into chaos. So when we finally release, the body instinctively rushes to fill the gap, turning on a news clip, opening another tab, scrolling endlessly. That habit makes us confuse emptiness with lack. But this kind of emptiness doesn't ask to be filled. It invites you to look. Like a lake after wind, you don't need to do anything to make it calm. Just stop stirring it. And the surface flattens on its own, the sky appearing perfectly within it. If you pay close attention, the quiet after releasing tension has its own structure. First comes confusion. The mind hasn't yet accepted that there's nothing left to control. Then comes a sense of light but strange, like walking through a winter forest where the branches whisper less, sounds grow sparse, and the air feels cold yet pure. This is where mindfulness matters in its simplest, most human way, not as a complex technique, but as the courage to be fully present with what is. Hear the hum of the air conditioner, the distant car, the soft ring of a spoon touching the rim of your cup. Feel the warmth in your palm. No judgment, no naming. That simple awareness is how Buddhist wisdom teaches us to walk through emptiness without shrinking away. The greatest fear here is the fear of losing control. We attach ourselves to roles: the fixer, the provider, the one who holds it all together so deeply that releasing tension can feel like dropping our identity. When the stress is gone, we quietly ask, then who am I? That question sounds dangerous, but it's as benevolent as a field cleared of weeds. Last season, the soil belonged to haste. This season, it belongs to seeds. In the Buddhist way to relieve stress, letting go isn't surrendering, it's returning things to their natural order. What belongs to today stays with today. What belongs to tomorrow, let it wait. Like the tide that rises and falls with the moon, it doesn't need you shouting from the shore. Try watching your breath the way you'd watch a wave. As you inhale, the mind gathers. As you exhale, it expands. When you lengthen your exhale just by half a beat, the body receives the signal of safety. You don't have to count or set a goal. Just notice the gentle sense of opening that happens in your chest. Many call this meditation, but you don't have to name it. You're simply practicing meditation for letting go in the most natural way, like sitting on a porch after the rain stops, watching sunlight return quietly through the clouds. Life will test you in that stillness. An email flashes in, a memory stings, a thought whispers, "If I don't hold on, will everything fall apart?" Imagine your mind as the sky and your thoughts as clouds. Don't chase, don't push. Clouds have their own path. The sky never has to win to remain the sky. That's the essence of non-attachment, neither clinging nor rejecting. And strangely, when you stop gripping, your worries lose their weight, like dry leaves falling from a branch, drifting softly, landing, and resting. You can place a small anchor throughout your day to recognize this gentle emptiness. Before moving from one task to another, don't rush. Stand for a moment at the threshold between what has ended and what's about to begin. Like standing on damp sand just after the tide withdraws, the imprint of foam still shining faintly. Inhale the sense of just finished. Exhale into not yet begun. Only a few seconds, but enough for your nervous system to understand. Nothing is chasing you. Repeat these small thresholds before you open your phone, as you set down your cup, as your hand reaches the doorknob, and you quietly train your mind to recognize finding peace in emptiness as safety, not threat. Look at nature once more to trust this rhythm. The pine tree doesn't try to summon the wind. When it comes, it sways, and when it leaves, it rests. The river doesn't rush to meet the ocean. It winds through valleys, feeds the fields, plays with the stones. The moon doesn't force its glow. It reflects the sun in season, round when the time is right. When you stop insisting on being full all the time, you allow life to flow through you the way it was meant to. And in that unfilled space, you find another kind of fullness, not one made of plans, but of presence. Of course, the world still asks you to work, care, and respond. Letting go of stress doesn't turn life into a postcard, it just removes the unnecessary handles you've been gripping. You still carry the basket. You just stop balancing it on your head. When pressure returns, and it will, you already know the way back. One longer exhale, one silent doorway between tasks, one sky broader than the clouds. From there, your decisions grow clearer, your voice softer, and your body less desperate to buy its ticket back to the land of control. If you ever need a sign that you're in the right place, listen to the quality of silence around you. Not the heavy silence of a closed room, but the living silence of a forest after rain, or a city before dawn. In that silence, you are not missing anything, you're being returned. This isn't a trick for quick stress relief. It's a renewal of your relationship with reality. Nothing added, nothing removed, only clarity. And once you've tasted that clarity, you'll return to it naturally, not out of duty, but because it feels like breathing. That is what surrender, in the truest American sense, really means. Letting go at the right moment, only to realize you were never falling. Part 2. The fear of stillness and why we run from it. There's a quiet truth most people discover only after they've let go of stress, that the hardest part isn't the release itself, but what comes after. When the constant rush fades, when the noise finally subsides, the stillness that follows can feel strange, almost threatening. We've lived for so long identifying with our tension. I'm busy, we say, as though busyness is proof of purpose. I'm stressed, we add, as though worry is a badge of care. Over time, stress becomes not just something we feel, it becomes who we think we are. So, when it slips away, there's a sudden hollow space inside. It feels like something is missing, but what's missing is only the weight we've mistaken for identity. Letting go of stress is like setting down a heavy backpack you've carried so long you forgot it wasn't part of your body. When you finally drop it, your shoulders don't know how to rest. Your muscles twitch, searching for tension. The body asks, "What do I hold now?" This is why the fear of stillness is so common. That emptiness feels too open, too unstructured. It's the in-between where the old self has dissolved and the new one hasn't yet formed. And yet, this gap, the one we keep running from, is the very space where inner peace begins to take shape. If you can simply breathe into that discomfort, even for a few moments, something subtle starts to shift. You realize your mind was never broken or chaotic. It was just crowded. Beneath all the noise, there's a natural spaciousness waiting to be felt. Picture a lake on a windy day. The surface ripples. Waves crash against the shore. The reflection of the sky disappears. The storm of stress does the same to the mind. It distorts, fragments, and blurs what's real. But the moment the wind dies, the lake doesn't have to try to calm down. It settles naturally, perfectly reflecting the world above. Your peace works in the same way. You don't need to force calmness or chase it. You just need to stop stirring the water. If you find that stillness feels overwhelming, start with something small. Notice the pauses between sounds around you, the faint hum of a refrigerator, the distant rhythm of footsteps, the whisper of air moving through the room. Those small silences are like doorways back into the present moment. Step through them gently, without judgment. Over time, the fear of quiet begins to soften because you realize silence isn't empty. It's alive, breathing with you. The truth is, we're not really afraid of stillness itself. We're afraid of what it might reveal. When you're no longer distracted by movement or noise, you start hearing the quieter truths, your unmet needs, your exhaustion, your longing to rest. But rather than turning away, you can treat that awareness like sunlight streaming through a window onto dust. It doesn't judge, it simply shows you what's there. Awareness alone begins the cleansing. Letting go of stress doesn't mean turning into someone unbothered by everything. It means learning to meet life without gripping it. Think of how a tree handles the wind it bends. It doesn't break. Or how a river moves around rocks instead of fighting them. You, too, can flow that way. When tension arises, pause. Feel the breath as it enters, and let the exhale linger just a little longer. That extra beat is your reminder that peace doesn't come from control. It comes from allowing. The next time the world feels too still, too quiet, try not to fill the silence immediately. Just notice the urge to reach for something, a phone, a thought, a plan, and let that urge pass through. It will, like the last echo of thunder leaving the sky. And when it does, you'll glimpse the reflection beneath. Your own mind, vast and unbroken, mirroring the calm of the world itself. This is what Buddhist wisdom means by freedom through non-attachment. You don't create peace, you uncover it. The lake was always clear. It just needed the wind to rest. And when you finally stop running from stillness, you'll see that what you feared most wasn't emptiness at all. It was your own capacity for calm. Part 3. Finding peace in the empty space. The empty space, after letting go of stress, isn't a blank screen. It's more like dawn before the first bird calls. Nothing flashy is happening, yet everything important is quietly arranging itself. In that space, you don't have to perform. You don't have to earn your breath. You simply get to be. This is the beginning of mindfulness in its plainest form, awareness without the usual grip of control. Some would label it meditation or surrender, but names matter less than the felt sense. You're finally meeting yourself without the armor of adrenaline. Think of a shoreline at low tide. The ocean hasn't disappeared. It has pulled back just enough to show you what's been there all along: patterns in the sand, smooth shells, tide lines of foam. Inner life has those patterns too, but the waves of busyness usually cover them. When the waters recede, resist the urge to pump in more noise. Let the beach show you itself. This is not passivity, it's intelligent rest. In the Buddhist spirit, it's non-attachment to the impulse to fix what isn't broken. When that familiar emptiness arrives, notice what your hands want to do. Reach for the phone, open another tab, arrange the desk for the third time today. Before you move, pause long enough to feel the exact shape of the urge. That single heartbeat of noticing is where inner peace begins. Let the breath lengthen on its own, like a sail filling with a light wind. If words help, whisper, "This is peace, not absence." The body understands sentences like that. Muscles unhook, the jaw softens, the nervous system takes off its shoes. Nature models this all day long. A maple doesn't rush to turn green in spring. It thaws leaf by leaf. A hawk rides thermals it didn't create. The desert holds heat in silence, then releases it at night without a speech. Your calm can be that unforced. The more you practice letting go of stress, the lighter life feels, not because problems vanish, but because you stop dragging them from room to room. You carry what's needed, where it's needed, then you set it down. That alone is profound stress relief. If stillness makes you fidgety, give your attention something honest to rest on. Feel the temperature of the air on your cheeks. Track the rise of your ribs and the fall of your belly. Listen for the softest sound in the room, the faint tick under the refrigerator's hum, the small hush of your own breath turning. Let mindfulness be tactile, not theoretical. You're not hunting for a special state. You're letting the ordinary reveal its mercy. There's a quiet recalibration that happens when you don't rush to fill space. Stories loosen. The one that says, "Life must be loud to be meaningful," begins to crack. Meaning can be a single beam of light moving across a wall. It can be the way steam curls from a mug on a cold morning, how the cup warms your palms while the world decides what kind of day it wants to be. In that noticing, you're practicing meditation for letting go without ever announcing it. No timer required, no perfect posture, just the willingness to stay. You may feel a reflex to turn the moment into a project. Optimize the breath, count the seconds, judge the results. When that happens, imagine a heron standing in shallow water. It doesn't make the fish appear by concentrating harder. It waits with presence, and when life moves, it moves. That's surrender in the most practical American sense, not giving up, but giving over the illusion that force creates peace. Peace tends to arrive when pressure eases, like a door swinging open once you stop leaning on it. Let the day offer you natural thresholds. Before you switch tasks, let the previous one truly end. Feel the echo fade, the way a bell's tone thins into silence you can almost touch. When you put a glass in the sink, let your palm register the cool of the water. When you open a door, feel the hinge, the brief draft of new air. These small, nearly invisible pauses are how you train your system to recognize finding peace in emptiness as safe. Repeated gently, they become a steady rhythm you can trust, like waves arriving, waves receding. Remember, letting go of stress isn't a promise that life will never be heavy again. Weather changes, storms return, yet even storms have an eye, a calm center proving that stillness can exist inside motion. You can learn to stand there more often. The practice is subtle, less doing, more allowing, less explaining, more sensing. Over time, you'll notice decisions get clearer when made from spaciousness. Conversations soften. Sleep arrives a little sooner. You stop insisting that every hour be productive. And paradoxically, what matters most gets done. And when the mind protests, "Shouldn't I be doing something?" let that question pass like a cloud. The sky doesn't negotiate with clouds, it hosts them. Hosting your thoughts with that kind of hospitality is non-attachment in action, not clinging, not pushing away, just room. Sometimes the truth shows up most vividly in the intervals, the space between breaths, between tasks, between words. That's not empty time. That's the architecture of calm, the frame that holds the picture of your life. So, the next time emptiness arrives, let it. Breathe into it the way the earth drinks rain, without hurry, without fear. Let the room be the room, the breath be the breath, the heart be the heart. Peace doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It appears when resistance steps aside, and in that appearance, ordinary moments begin to glow with the simple light of being here. Now, nothing added, nothing missing. Conclusion, a gentle reminder. So, if you've just let go of a burden, a fear, or a lifetime of pressure, and now you're staring into that quiet space, wondering what's next, don't rush to fill it. That silence is not emptiness. It's the sound of your soul resting. The peace you've been chasing doesn't live in control, achievement, or noise. It lives here in the stillness after surrender. And once you recognize that, you'll realize you never lost anything. You simply came home to yourself. If this message spoke to you, take a moment in the comments to share what letting go of stress means in your life. And if you'd like to walk this path together, subscribe to Infinite Buddhist Teachings, where we explore the beauty of mindfulness, compassion, and the quiet truth that peace was always within you.